Not so good news this week, but we'll get into that in a minute. The first part of this video is me just getting the fuel level sender flanges in place and finally installed. So mixing up a small batch, I think I only used, I don't know, 10 grams, maybe 15 grams or something like that. So small batch just to get those two flanges installed and get those screws torqued down so that the squeeze out happens and everything gets set up and cured properly. I did give it about 3 or 4 days to cure out, and this is the part where it starts to get a little rough this week. I was starting to do the water test for both tanks, and unfortunately, both tanks failed. So, lesson learned for me: the failure point appears to be the outboard and inboard ribs at the leading edge, where you have those small penetrations where they've cut those to be able to hydroform those and get them set up. So pretty frustrating to fail both tests on the first go, but at the same time, there's also some value in failing those water tests. For those of you that know, a water test is usually more telling than an air test. I learned this a long time ago in construction, that a water molecule is actually smaller in physical size than an air molecule. So odds are, if you can pass a water test, you can pass an air test. Not only that, but making sure that those things are watertight and that they'll hold the fuel properly before you put that back baffle on is extremely important. So I would have been extremely frustrated and even worse off had I passed an air test after I put that back baffle on, only to find out later that I failed with actually holding the fuel when the time comes. So the latter part of this video is me basically ripping out all the old joints. I didn't want to leave any of that old material behind, and redoing those joints and actually using my finger as a trowel as opposed to the popsicle stick. I wanted to basically use my hand strength and my finger strength to be able to force the proseal into those small crevices and make sure that it was pushed into each one of those little joints to make sure that there's a good seal all the way through. So mixed up a relatively large batch here to make sure that I had more than enough. I only ended up using, I don't know, maybe half of what I mixed up, but I mixed up a 50-gram batch. So pretty significant amount of material. And I worked through to make sure that I had good joints all the way through. And then I also took the time to install the sump valves in the fuel tank with the proseal that I had mixed up as there as well. And then the last bit of the proseal that I used was to use some scrap pieces of aluminum to close up where the fuel lines will actually install later when the plumbing gets installed with the fuselage. So let this set up over the weekend and hopefully pass a water test here this coming week and keep moving on with the back baffle.